Hello, good day and welcome to my channel. Here we'll be looking at linear sequence, a problem on linear sequence, or you can call it arithmetic progression. The question says that in an arithmetic progression, which is also called a linear sequence, A, which is the first term, is -7, D, which is the common difference, is 3, and S subscript n, which is the sum of n terms, is equal to 65. Find the value of n. Now, the first thing for us to do is to write down the formula for the sum of terms in an arithmetic progression or a linear series or sequence. So the formula is S subscript n is equal to n over 2, all brackets open, 2a plus n minus 1, bracket close d, and then we have the overall bracket close. So this is the formula that we'll be using to obtain the value of n as asked in the question. So now let's substitute value. So we are told from the question that S subscript n is 65. So I'm going to simply write 65 here, and that will be equal to n over 2, open bracket, 2 multiplied by a. A is the first term, which is -7, as seen from the question there. A is -7, and then plus n, which is what we are looking for, minus 1, all multiplied by d. The common difference d is 3, and then all bracket close. So we can simply write this as 65, and then we simplify further. So I'm writing this as 65, which is equal to n over 2, bracket open, 2 multiplied by -7 is -14, plus n multiplied by 3 will give us 3n, and then -1 multiplied by 3 will give us -3, and then bracket close. I can simply cross multiply now, because don't forget this 2 as the denominator here is applicable to everything. So this is like n multiplied by this that we have there, then everything all over 2. That is what this 2 here also represents. So I can simply cross multiply now, and then what do I have there? I have 2 multiplied by 65, and then this is like 65 over 1. So 1 here multiplies the n, which is multiplying that bracket there. So what that will give us is to write the n. Let me say this 1 multiplied by this numerator that we have here. That gives me n bracket open, -14 minus 3. This -3, I brought it closer to the -14 because they are like terms, and then plus 3, and that will be equal to 65 multiplied by 2. This 65 is multiplying the denominator here, which is 2. Then if I open up this bracket, I have, and okay, let me simplify what is inside the bracket first. Sorry, this is 3n. This is 3n. This -3 is written here, and then this positive 3n is this. So if I simplify what is inside the bracket, I have -14 minus 3, and that will give me -17, and then plus 3n. Everything is equal to 130. 65 multiplied by 2 will give me 130. So if I expand this bracket, I have -17n plus 3n square. When n multiplies 3n, give you 3n square, and that is equal to 130. So this is leading us to a quadratic equation where we have to equate to 0. to make it easier for us. So I'm going to write 3n square first, which is a square term. I'm writing this positive 3n square first. And then negative 17n comes next. That is it. Sorry, negative 17n. And then this positive 130, if it comes to this left-hand side, it becomes negative 130. And that will be equal to 0. Now, in order to solve this further, there's something I would like us to do, because the first thing for us to do when we are solving a quadratic equation like this is to multiply the first and last term. So if I'm multiplying the first term, which is 3n squared, multiplied by the last term, which is negative 130, it will give us negative 390. N squared, don't forget n squared. So the first term multiplied by the last term will give us negative 390 n squared. So now, the next thing for us to do is to look for two numbers in n such that their product will give us negative 390 and their sum will give us negative 17, because we are solving the quadratic equation now. That is how to solve the quadratic equation. So two numbers that their product will be negative 390 and their sum will be negative 17. And don't forget, the two numbers should be in n, so that this will be in n squared and this will be n. So a simple trick of obtaining the factors of 390, because the two numbers have to be the factors of 390. A simple trick of doing that is to break 390 into product of its prime factors. So here I can simply write 390. The first thing that can go in 390 is 2. 2 can go in 390, and that will give me 195. Sorry, 195. And then the next number that can go in 195 is 3. The 195 can divide 3, and that will give us 65. And then 65 can divide 5. 5 is the smallest number that 65 can divide, and that will give us 13. And then 13 is a prime number, so it can only divide itself. So 13 in 13, we have 1. So now the next thing for us to do, don't forget we are looking for factors of 390. So two numbers that will multiply to get 390 has to be 390 and 1. 390 times 1 will give us 390. And then 195 times 2 will give us 390. And then 65 times 6. 65 times 6 will give us 390. What you just need to do is to look for a number that you use to multiply each of these ones to get the 390. So it is 6 that will multiply 65 to get 390. And then what are we going to multiply by 390? By 13 to get 390. You simply say 390 divided by 13, and you get that factor as 30. So now, don't forget, we are looking for two numbers that their sum will be this negative 17, and their product will be negative 390. So this one has helped us to break down the factors. So now, can 390 added to 1 give us negative 17? No, it is not possible. 195 and 2 added together cannot give us 17. 65 added to 6 cannot give us 17. But 13 added to 30, there's who can assign the signs to them, and we have our 17 that we're looking for. So we're looking for negative 17. So which of them will take the negative sign? It has to be the higher number so that this remains negative 17. So it has to be negative 30 and positive 13. So these are the two numbers such that when we multiply them, it's going to give us negative 390. And when we add them, it's going to give us negative 17. because negative 30 added to positive 13 will give us negative 17. So the next thing for us to do now is to come back to this equation and replace only the middle term. Don't forget, we replace only the middle term by using these two factors. So I'll write it as 3n squared. These two factors, don't forget to put n along with them. So I'll take negative 30n, don't forget to put the n, and then positive 13n, positive 13n. Such that when these two numbers are added together, it takes us back to negative 17n, and then minus 130, and that will be equal to 0. So don't forget to master this trick, which is involved in obtaining the factors, and from there you can get the two numbers that you need to add together to obtain this middle term in the quadratic equation. And then now, the next thing is for us to factorize by grouping. So factorize these two first. So what is common to 3n squared and 30n should be 3n. 3n is common. And then what will be in the bracket? We simply say the 3n squared here divided by 3n, you are left with n. And then negative 30n divided by 3n, you'll be having negative 10. And then whatever sign you have here, that is the sign we are going to pick. And then what is common to 13n and 130, 130 as a constant number, it should be just the number 13. And then you open up bracket. What is left? 13n divided by n. By 13, you have n. And then negative 130 divided by 13, you have negative 10. And that is equal to 0. So with this now, we can obtain the value of n. So what do we do to finally factor this quadratic equation? You take one of these same brackets. Just simply take one, that is n minus 10. That is the trick to apply. Just simply take one, and then you open up bracket. Take these two terms outside the bracket. So I have 3n, write the first one here, write this first, and then plus 13, plus 13. So for us to solve this equation finally, we have to equate each of these brackets to 0. So n minus 10 equated to 0, that will give us n minus 10 equated to 0, that will give us n is equal to, this negative 10 goes without, it becomes 10. And then here, this other part says 3, we equate this 3n plus 13 to 0 as well. So that gives us 3n is equal to negative 13, and that gives us n is equal to negative 13 over 3. Now, don't forget, we are looking for number of terms. N simply means number of terms. You will agree with me that number of terms cannot be negative and it cannot be in fraction. So this cannot be our answer. So our answer can only be this rational whole number, which is not a negative number. So this becomes n is equal to 10 as our final answer. So that is the final answer to this problem. So please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can get more detailed breakdown of lessons like this for easier understanding.